What they're not trained in is things like accounting. You know, there was a commercial with Danny DeVito was talking to, I don't know, I think it's a personal trainer at the gym. He says, remember when you graduated from tax school? Of course you don't, because you didn't. And that's the same thing with business owners. They have no training in accounting, logistics, inventory management, HR, employee benefits, business insurance, any of that stuff. Yet they're forced to have to deal with it because, especially when they're starting out, it's just them. Or maybe they have one or two employees, but they have to they have to learn to navigate that stuff, and they don't do it very well. And as quickly as possible, they want somebody else to fool with it. I mean, you talk to most business owners like, we're going to spend the day talking about financial statements and accounting. They'd rather take a beating.
Welcome to CREPN Radio for influential commercial real estate professionals who work with investors, buyers, and sellers of commercial real estate coast to coast. Whether you're an investor, broker, lender, property manager, attorney, or accountant, we're here to learn from the experts.
Welcome to Commercial Real Estate Pro Network's CREPN Radio. Thanks for joining us. My name is J. Darren Gross. This is the podcast focused on commercial real estate investment and risk management strategies. Weekly, we have conversations with commercial real estate investors and professionals who provide their experience and insight to help you grow your real estate portfolio. Today's interview is sponsored by Building Insurance and Risk. When you invest in real estate, it pays to work with a real estate investor protection specialist to protect yourself and your investment from catastrophic loss. The experts at Building Insurance and Risk focus on real estate investor protection. They provide you with multiple insurance coverage offers and a side-by-side coverage comparison. To learn more, go to buildinginsurancerisk.com. Today, my guest is Cary Prejean. Cary Prejean is the founder of Strategic Business Advisors LLC. Cary's vision is to work with business owners to dramatically improve cash flow and profits, business autonomy, and long-term strategic planning. And in just a minute, we're going to speak with Cary Prejean about maximizing profits and cash flow. But first, a quick reminder, if you like our show, CREPN Radio, there are a couple things you can do to help us out. You can like, share, and subscribe, and as always, we encourage you to leave a comment. We love to hear from our listeners. Also, if you want to see how handsome our guests are, be sure to check out our YouTube channel. You can find us on YouTube at Commercial Real Estate Pro Network. And while you're there, please subscribe. With that, I want to welcome my guest, Cary Prejean. Welcome to CREPN Radio.
Hey, Darren, thanks for having me on. Glad to be here.
Well, I'm delighted you're here, and I'm looking forward to our conversation. But before we get started, if you could take just a minute and share with the listeners a little bit about your background.
Well, my background, I graduated in accounting, worked for a couple of Fortune 500 companies, worked for one of the big accounting firms at the time, got hired away by a client, and quickly found out that not just this gentleman, but several business owners that I've met after really don't know how to read didn't know how to read their financial statements, didn't have any good, what I call useful financial data to operate from. And they were they were making decisions based on what is sales like, how much money do you have in the bank, rather than what's the financial statements telling us about the business. Where are we? It had nothing to guide them during the month. It was always looking at last month financial statements, in the next month. So over the years, I've developed what I call actionable financial data in the form of dashboards that business owners, depending on the business, get daily, weekly, monthly, just to let them know what's going on in the business in real time as much as possible. Also helped with getting the business owner out of the day-to-day business by building a system of processes, and in longer term, helping them design the business into the future with strategic planning as a regular business practice.
No.
Started consulting in '87, and here we are.
Wow. No, that's a conversation I've had with many of consultants and clients that recognize the importance of finances and understanding the finances. I mentioned by day I'm an insurance broker. And one of the products we sell is performance bonds. And what people may not understand is bonds are basically an unsecured line of credit. Well, the bond company looks at you with a pretty fine-tooth comb
Yeah.
to make sure that you can pay that back. And because unlike insurance, a bond is it's a guarantee, but the application is also an indemnity agreement in that if the bond company pays out, you're agreeing to pay them back. So that their first priority is to make sure you can pay them back. And but just that whole education of finances is it's critical to having a good ability to have a reasonable priced bond kind of thing. But so tell me, um, going back to your kind of your aha moment there, where you were, working with a client and recognizing that others had this challenge or this inability to you know uh, understand the finances and that what what do you attribute that to? Was it a just like recognizing the balance in the bank, or not? It was not fully understanding finances, or what was the?
Well, if you look at most business owners, what got them into business, right? What most homeowners do, they see a possibility, they see they can turn that into a revenue stream, make some money from it, and that's what gets them into business. It's the excitement of making it happen. What they're not trained in is things like accounting. You know, there was a commercial with Danny DeVito was talking to, I don't know, I think it's a personal trainer at the gym. He says, remember when you graduated from tax school? Of course you don't, because you didn't. And that's the same thing with business owners. They have no training in accounting, logistics, inventory management, HR, employee benefits, business insurance, any of that stuff. Yet they're forced to have to deal with it because, especially when they're starting out, it's just them, or maybe they have one or two employees, but they have to they have to learn to navigate that stuff, and they don't do it very well. And as quickly as possible, they want somebody else to fool with it. I mean, you talk to most business owners like, we're going to spend the day talking about financial statements and accounting. They'd rather take a beating. Their eyes roll back in the head, the eyes kind of glaze over, they hate it. So rather than make it some torturous event, it's like, I'm going to give you a layman's interpretation of what your financial statement is saying about your business. And over time, by showing them, these ratios are saying this about your business, and you start keeping the history of all that, they begin to see it as, okay, my financial statements, it's really like a report card. They speak to me about the business's financial strength, liquidity, profitability, and efficiency. And that's what, doing a good financial analysis does.
Yeah, I like that the notion of a report card. Um, Basically, kind of giving them some guidance and letting them know where what the letter grade their finances are in. Um, Let me ask you this: with businesses, obviously having a strong financial is important uh, for the viability of the business. But is there any one issue that you see that drives them to want to or need to understand the finances better?
Yeah, it usually comes when there's been some pain, some suffering over not paying attention to it. It's like, oh, wait a minute, someone's going to come back and bite me. I really need to pay attention to this over here, because not paying attention to it just caused me so much, whatever, some financial pain, some loss, something. There was some suffering that went on. It's like, I need to start paying attention to it.
Yeah. And with respect to that pain, is it a like not having the money they thought they had, or is there any? I mean, is there like
Well,
a common?
no, I mean it's all kinds of stuff. One thing that's fairly common is, all of a sudden they find out the tax man's at the door and he wants to check for more money you have in a tax account in your bank account, because the accounting manager's got a thick stack of certified mail from IRS, Department of Revenue, saying you owe us because some return wasn't filed. Maybe it's just a misunderstanding. In some cases, taxes weren't paid. And nobody wants to tell the boss about it, right? So the boss finds out in the worst possible way, tax man's at the door, want to check for more money than you have. That's one way I've seen. Another is like all of a sudden there's this big payment that comes due and it's going to drain the bank account. Big insurance premium, big tax payment, whatever, because they don't have any cash management in place. They're not getting cash projections every week as to see. In other words, we got this big payment that's coming due. It's in 10 weeks. So we either got to speed up on collections, slow down on payables, maybe go to the bank, see if there's like an insurance premium. You can finance those generally. You can finance them through the bank. A lot of times the insurance companies will let you finance them. They have a, pay as you go, but get prepared for it rather than, hey, we need a check for $100,000 today. There's some of that. Sometimes it's been that, I mean, I don't know. I've seen some business owners like, do you get regular financial statements? Yeah, I think we got one last 9 months ago. And not knowing what's going on, all of a sudden you find out, hey, sales is like 30% below where you thought they would be, or expenses have exploded. And now instead of, pick a number, 50,000 a month in overhead, you're cruising along at 90,000 a month in overhead just because you made some bad hires, you took on expenses that you didn't really need to have, that kind of thing. And all of a sudden it's showing up in terms of financial pain, not enough cash, not enough profit. Whatever. So yeah, there's a bunch of different ways that shows up.
So when somebody has that pain and wants to, no longer have that pain, when you step in, is it creating a budget or I mean, how do you approach that from a we got a problem, I need help. Uh,
Well, generally what I ask is, what's the biggest problem? Where's the biggest pain? We're going to address that first. All right. And then start hitting them after that. What's the next biggest pain? What's the next biggest pain? And again, depending, it may be financial. I mean, usually it stems somewhat financial at least. Sometimes it's a matter of there's a bottleneck in the business, or there's several bottlenecks in the business, and until we get them fixed, we're not going to be profitable. It just depends on what it is. Sometimes it's what's the word I'm looking for here? Sometimes bad staffing. You've got some toxic people that are causing good people to leave and only the bad ones stay. So a lot of times it leads to, well, let me say it this way. Everything that happens in the business, good or bad or in between, the business owner has to own it. And either you brought it in here on purpose or you let it happen or you ignored it or something, but you have to take, there's a book by, which is ex-Navy SEAL Jocko Willett called Extreme
Willingham,
Own,
yeah, yeah, Jocko Willingham, or
yeah,
something, yeah.
I forget exactly, but it's a book called Extreme Ownership. And in that, he talks about on the Navy SEALs going on a mission, if anything goes wrong, it's the mission commander's fault. Either you didn't have your guys prepared, you didn't have bring along the right gear, your timing was off, you ignored some intelligence, something. You're supposed to have it down to where everything just goes by the numbers. So if something goes on, you own it. And same thing for a business owner. If something's wrong in the business, it's up to you to get it fixed or to fix it. And a lot of times it's something that the business owner doesn't have in their repertoire, right? That's why you can hire out a lot of things to get fixed. But you can't just ignore them. And that's generally, I guess, one of the biggest things I've seen that business owners knowing a problem, ignoring it, and thinking they can like work around it, or they just have to learn how to deal with it rather than getting it fixed. And there's some amount of I'm supposed to know. I own the business. I'm supposed to know how to handle this. And you're a business owner. Doesn't mean you're a professional at everything there is to know about.
Right, right. So you identify the pain and try and work through that. Is it do you find business owners receptive to that, or are they resistant to the solution?
Most of them are open to it somewhat. There's usually some resistance because there's this what do I want to call this? This thing of hanging on to what you know. The devil you know versus the devil you don't. Yeah, this is painful, but we're used to it and it's not really that bad. And, you know, so the question is, are you committed to change? That's a big thing. If you're not committed to change or you're not willing to be different, you're gonna have this problem's gonna still be here. And here's the bad news. If you know how to fix this, it'd already be fixed. We wouldn't be talking.
Yeah,
Right.
that's a good point right there. I mean that that's ultimately, yeah, if if they knew how to fix it, why would you be talking to me, right?
Right.
That's that's good. I like that. So when you work with businesses, is there any particular industry that you find uh, more challenging, or that's more frequent? Well,
In terms of like an industry,
yeah, or industry or a size of business or
um, well, I don't really work with big businesses because those are more, they're trying to maintain. I'm generally working with entrepreneurs who are trying to scale their business. They want to grow, right? And they've grown the business to the capacity that they can hang on to everything. And for them to scale past that, they're generally going to have to turn the business more into a system of processes to where they can step out and do what they do best, which is being an entrepreneur. Um, Probably the toughest industry to work with, my experience has been construction. Why? I don't know. There's something about the construction industry. The people that are drawn to that tend to be a little rougher, tend to be a little more hard-headed, uh, very much my way. And because I'm not from construction, you don't know about construction. What do you know? Well, I know business is business. It's a matter of get the work, do the work, get paid for the work. I don't care if you're a lemonade stand or a global company, that's what business is. So, well, I don't have to know the intricacies. I don't know how your business is done, but I do know a lot about business. I've been around a long time, seen a lot of them, seen a lot of what works, seen a lot of what doesn't work. Um, so, I don't have to know how to pour a foundation, but I do know there has to be a process to it, right? There has to be a process of lining up the right people, the right materials, the right equipment, depending on what the application is. Is this foundation for a parking lot or is it foundation for a 200,000 square foot warehouse that's going to have heavy trucks rolling through it? There's a difference. Um, there's a process. There should be a process for all your critical functions. That way, the owner's not sitting there with their hands in all the pies, trying to manage everything, wondering why they're working 100 hours a week, can't take time off, and why, quote, their employees don't get it. They just don't get it. No kidding. You've trained them to be that way. That's what you don't get. Everything in the business is a reflection of how you run your business. So if your employees are not getting it, it's because you inadvertently train them not to get it, because you're the hero that always has to step in and fix it. Because you're so insistent on doing it my way.
so. Let me ask you that just to that point exactly. So if the business owner has that hero mentality, and they've hired somebody that's incapable or not, they haven't let go and given them the rope to do the task. How do you find that usually changes, or I mean, what is it that the business owner has to do to change to uh, either give the employee the or let go of that, nobody can do it as good as I can, kind of thing.
Right. So again, if it's a matter of are you sick and tired of being sick and tired, right? Are you tired of working 80 to $100 a week? Are you tired of not being able to take time off? Are you tired of you having to always step in? I mean, it's got to get old, that you always got to step in last minute to fix things. So whatever is going on, these critical functions, what I want from the business owner is what results you want to see produced. Tell me what results you want to produce. I'm going to let your employees design a process that will produce those results consistently. And again, it might be trial and error at first, but once we get the process that produces those results consistently, you can now step back because a lot of it deals with trust. The business owner, it's a matter of I want them to do it the way that I do it because I know the way that I do it works, and nobody cares about my business like I do. So if you've trained your employees to, only take things so far, it's really hard for you to trust they're going to take care of your business the way you want it taken care of. So building processes that produce the consistent results the business owner wants, that allows the business to now trust the employees that, you follow the process, we're going to get the results I want. And the longer the process is in existence and is producing results, the more the business owner can relax and focus more on what they do best, which is find the possibilities, turn them into revenue, strengthen the strategic relationships, that kind of thing.
Got it. So from a standpoint of maximizing profits and cash flow, would you say that the processes are the one of the keys to that? I mean, having standardized processes where everybody marches in the same direction and does the task the
Well,
same way, or
it's part of it. I mean, in that you
uh,
don't have everybody just doing it their own way. I mean, can you imagine? Think of a fast food restaurant. I mean, Burger King is famous. They have how to put a Whopper together diagrammed on the wall, where if you can read the diagram, you can put together the Whopper, and it'll be consistent, consistent, consistent. So if imagine you have a business that you have, you want something done, and everybody kind of has their own way of doing it. You think there's some room for error, there's some wastefulness. Maybe someone's going to spend too much money. They're going to get the more expensive materials when less materials could do. Are they going to spend too much time? They're going to use more expensive equipment. That's why you want to standardize everything. That's one part of maximizing profits is to have it. This is the way we do it. Don't cowboy it. Don't be a free range chicken. This is the way we do this process. But part of it is, well, there's 12 basic strategies that I go through to help people maximize profits and cash flow. One of the first one is cost cutting. You'd be amazed, especially if you haven't been looking at your financial statements, how much money is being wasted on things that your business doesn't really need or hasn't even used, maybe in some cases, in years. So going through financial statements every month and your bank statement, see what kind of automatic debits are coming out. Going through with a fine-tooth comb, and I'm not saying get rid of things that your business needs to operate. I'm talking about getting rid of expenses that aren't necessary, or maybe even replacing some things with lesser expensive products or services. Employee benefits is one big area. Business insurance. Have you shopped your business insurance in the last 3 years? If not, maybe you need to. Maybe you need to. And that's a mistake I've seen some business owners do is they get some good buddy of theirs to be their insurance broker. And then the insurance broker kind of said, well, he's my friend, so, I'm not going to really have to do a lot of work here. That's why you want to have a business. Your business insurance person should be more like a trusted advisor, somebody who's looking out for your best interests. Does that make sense? And that's
oh
not
yeah,
always that's not
no,
always the case. I've seen so many business owners, they get kind of disillusioned when you do have them shop their business insurance. It's like my friend's been my broker for the last 10, 12 years, and I've been overpaying. Well, nobody's paying attention to it. So yeah, you've been overpaying. You've
yeah,
insured some risks you don't have, and you have some risks that you haven't insured that if they happen, you're gonna be in a world of hurt.
yeah. No, and I think at least with insurance, people, it's a little overwhelming, and it's not exactly something they look forward to. And if they can deal with somebody they trust, they feel like they've solved for half of it at least. Um, versus like you said, working with somebody is just a professional as opposed to a relative or a friend kind of thing.
Yeah.
I get it. So we talked about systems and that and being willing to kind of take a look at everything and that what about like culture? How long is it? How do you create a culture that is more uh, adept at this? Or I mean, or is it how do you change the culture?
Well, let's ask the question, where does the culture come from? Right? The culture starts at the top and rolls downhill. So if you want, some business owners, they just want a transaction relationship. You come in here, do whatever you need to do, and you get paid, and that's it. You can, there are a lot of businesses that operate on that level, but don't expect anybody to stay late. Don't expect anybody to, give an extra effort, do anything special, think outside of the box. People are gonna come in, what do I have to do to get paid? And that's it. Or you want a culture that has people that are willing to put in the extra effort, that are willing to think outside the box, that are mission focused rather than paycheck focused. Does that make sense? The owner has to be a leader to do that. They have to have some vision that attracts people that want to be a part of that vision, something bigger than them. And that's not always easy to do. It's not always easy to do, but it takes a business owner that has this bigger vision about where they're headed to, about what they want the business to be about over the next 5, 10, 20 years. That's going to attract the right people that also want to be a part of that. That makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. And is that something that you find that uh, they possess when you start working with them, or is that something that develops as they start to see how the systems improve the the whole process?
Well, let me put it this way. Most business owners start out with like they see a couple of good ideas, and then they get so caught up in the doingness of the business, the busyness of the business, that they tend to lose focus on what that vision was. One of the things I do in working with people is to get them to, I guess, rekindle or refine what that vision is. And one of the things we work on is what do you want your business to look like in 5 years, 10 years? What markets do you want to be in? How many people do you want to have? What kind of revenue you want to have? What kind of compensation you want for you? How much time do you want to be able to take off? I had a client that I worked with for 15 years, and we started off, he was doing about 1.2 million. By the time I left 15 years later, he was doing about 75 million.
Wow.
And since then, I said, look, you need somebody full time. So since then, one of the things I helped him do right before I left was to take a valuable piece of real estate in the greater Houston area and turn it into, it had an antiquated concrete block plant that at best broke even every month. And we turned that into an extruder line inside of a 45,000 foot warehouse. And it created a product that he could sell into the pipeline industry. And his profits on it were 40% because he's getting out of Britain. But when he started the extruder line, his profit margins went up about 75, 80%. I met with his chief operating officer, who at the time we did this was his VP of engineering. I asked him how Houston's doing. This is a couple of years ago. He said, yeah. I said, how's the extruder line in Houston going? He goes, well, we now have 5 warehouses and 7 lines. He says, we're selling product around in South America, in Asia, the Middle East. We're not selling in Europe because of the regulatory red tape there. And they may be selling there now. In the meantime, in fact, I know he acquired an engineering firm. My guess is his revenues are somewhere around $250 million now. I still talk to him every now and then. He doesn't go to the office every day. And when he does, he goes in when he's ready. Like he might go in there for 11 or later. He leaves early. He used to work like all the time. But one of the things I helped him do was strategically design his business in the future to where it didn't need him to survive. It didn't need him there every day, all day. Now he still helps out, when the need arises, but it's not required of him to be there all the time for him to have a very robust, profitable business.
Yeah. No, that's the the reason to get into business is to have something that works for you,
Exactly.
rather than that you work for. So otherwise you'd have a
Yeah.
job. That's good. Um, so are there any like universal uh, lessons or mistakes that you see people, in this kind of, going from pain to to growth? Is there any kind of like a fundamental other than like, we've talked about like, processes and culture. Is there something that you see that maybe it's outside the business? Is there anything outside the business that you see that's critical to a company being able to grow?
Well, yeah, I mean, one of the jobs of the owner or the CEO or the visionary of the company is to constantly be scanning the horizon for what possibilities, what opportunities are out there for us to capitalize on, as well as what threats, what risks are out there that we can mitigate or navigate around. So that's what's outside because listen, the changes that we see now, though, the pace of change now is like lightning fast compared to, say, what it was back in the 80s. The rate of change, technology, markets. I mean, AI, if you're not on board with AI already, you better hurry up because when the train leaves the station, you'll still be standing on the platform. Um, So, back in the 80s, it was the personal computer changed a lot of things. And then in the 90s, the internet changed things. And now it's all this technology and, the technology we have in this, the phone, I'm told, is more computing power than what they used to do the moon launch, right?
Yeah.
So, and everybody has one of these. So that's going to create something. And in the future, I've seen where you won't even have the object anymore. The phone will basically be in your arm. Now, I don't know that I'm going to be up for that, but
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. That's kind of stuff that's coming down the pipe. So you got to constantly, in terms of outside the business, you got to constantly be scanning for what's out there. The old SWOT um, analysis. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What are your opportunities? What are your threats? That has to constantly be looked at in terms of outside the business. But the big thing that really gets people moving from being a business operator to being a business owner is when we deal with this whole issue of what do you want? Knowing what you want, and that the way I talk about it is what's going to satisfy you. And what I mean by that is satisfaction is a matter of enough action. Or as a mentor of mine told me a long time ago, he said the secret to life is getting exactly what you want, being ultimately satisfied. The problem most people have with that is number one, they don't ask for what they want. And generally it's because they don't know what they want. They haven't given more than about 5 minutes thinking about what is enough. What will be enough revenue for me this year? What will be enough income for me this year? What will be enough, whatever, time off, whatever, what's going to be, what kind of culture I want my business to have for me to be satisfied. And again, not just this year, but what do you want it to be in 5 years? What do you want it to be in 10 years? Now you can start setting some markers on the horizon for you to move towards. But now you at least you know where you're headed. Whereas before, we were doing the same thing for 20 years and it doesn't work so good anymore. What's wrong? Well, the world has moved on. You're not planning for the future. If you don't design your business into the future will design your business for you, and you probably won't like where it winds up. So it's a
Yeah.
matter of being intentional. That's the thing that's going to get you, to where you want to go, to where you can truly become a business owner and work if you want to, not if you don't. If you want to take 4 weeks off, go on vacation, take the wife, kids, whatever, go do it because now you have a business that's producing income for you.
All right. No, that's well put. I mean, that's the goal, right? To have
Yeah,
the business work for you. I get
yeah.
it.
But again, you have if you never declare satisfaction, you will never be satisfied. Until you declare what will satisfy you, you will never be satisfied. Most people walk around with this attitude of, this isn't really it. If only my life were more better, different, I'd be happy. But they never declare what is more, what is better, what is different.
Yeah, a lot of truth in that.
Yeah,
Got to know what you want.
yeah,
Hey, Carrie, if we could, I'd like to shift gears here for a second.
sure.
By day, like I mentioned, I'm an insurance broker, and as such, I work with my clients to assess risk and determine what to do with the risk. And there's three strategies we typically consider. We first look to see if we can avoid the risk. If that's not an option, we look to see if we can minimize the risk. If we cannot avoid nor minimize the risk, we look to see if we can transfer the risk. And that's what an insurance policy is. And as such, I like to ask my guests if they can look at their own situation. Could be your clients, could be the economy, could be tariffs, could be the political environment, whatever it is that you identify and consider to be the biggest risk. And again, for clarification, while I am an insurance broker, I'm not necessarily looking for an insurance related answer. And so if you're willing, I'd like to ask you, Cary Prejean, what is the biggest risk?
You're talking about big risk for business owners?
Yeah, however you want to identify it.
Well, I mean that's what I deal with business owners, right? The biggest risk for them is not paying attention. You know, getting lost in the weeds, not paying attention what's out there, not anticipating some threat, as you call it, and they don't know. They haven't even thought about it. They haven't even seen it. So there's no mitigating it. There's no transferring it. There's no navigating around it. It just hits you like an iceberg. You have to pay attention to that kind of stuff, and that's why it's good to have, as you're saying, you come in and you take a very risk centric approach to what risks are out there and what can you mitigate, what can you alleviate, what can you transfer. I think that's I've never heard it discussed that way, but I like the approach. So if you're not paying attention to everything that's out there, it's not just insurable risk, but other risks that are out there, you're going to get blindsided. You fly blind. If you fly blind, you will hit something eventually.
True. No, there's, and the reason why I like to ask the question is risk is everywhere. It's not limited to just the insurable thing. And being aware of what's out there is definitely key. If you don't know, you don't know, right?
Right.
So, Cary, where can listeners go if they'd like to learn more or connect with you?
I have a website, strategicbusinessadvisors.org. You can find me on LinkedIn, Cary Prejean. Those are probably the best places. You can schedule a free consultation with me from my website.
Got it. Well, Cary Prejean, I can't say thanks enough for taking the time to talk. I've enjoyed it. I learned a lot, and look forward to doing it again soon.
Yeah. Hey, Darren. Thank you, man. I enjoyed the conversation.
All right. For our listeners, if you like this episode, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Remember, the more you know, the more you grow. That's all we've got this week. Until next time, thanks for listening to Commercial Real Estate Pro Network's CREPN Radio.
You're listening to CREPN Radio for influential commercial real estate professionals. For more information on this or any of our guests, like us on Facebook, CREPN Radio.